Welcome to the main Art Spirit studio. This is the Indian Island School classroom that I'm filming in now. And welcome all of you other people who are joining along as well. We're making the 6th grade lesson, which is making a paper cutout creature animation. And so we're making it out of a watercolor sheet. This is a watercolor demonstration that I did years ago. And it's just basically the class was doing all kinds of lines just to kind of figure out what watercolor would do on paper. And so it's sort of like a test sheet. Many of you will get one of these. When you flip it over to the other side, the paper is just as good to paint on this side, and it looks like a brand new sheet, except it's got a couple of blemishes. This is perfect for making an animated character because it's made out of cotton rag material, which is a whole lot more durable. And it's not like the paper that the drawing was made from. The drawing is actually made from a photocopy machine, very, very thin. The weight is very thin, and it's made of wood fiber, and it's not going to hold up to a lot of rigors of filmmaking. And the wax paper that we're using, stencil, is a little tough, but it won't receive watercolor, so we really can't paint on it or anything like that. So this is going to be, the next step is to transfer our pieces onto the watercolor. Can't wait to show you that today, so here we go. And I'm cutting my last piece here. You can see I've cut out a lot of parts, about 16 of them, 15 or 16 of them. I'm counting, I don't even remember how many. And I'm starting to put the animal together. So the back leg is here, the front leg will be in the front, and it could be separate from this one could actually move forward. This one could be in the back too. This will have a moving foot too. And I can actually get him to stand too, which is kind of cool. I can get him to do different things that I couldn't do in my drawing. This will be his head, and I could have his ears go back if I want to, or stand up. And this will be his jaw. He's going like that. And here's his other, kind of maybe he's scratching at a tree or something. And this will be his tail. So what's really cool about this is I've made a character that can move its tail, but it's not really, it's very difficult to kind of keep track of all these pieces without putting them all together. Plus you see all the numbers on there because I don't want to lose track of where all these shapes are, what they are, and all of that. So our next step is to use watercolor paper and actually transfer these pieces onto a page. Now, this is what my page looked like before. I have a lot left over, and you may want to use this paper to make extra things like wings. So if you have a lot of parts, maybe more than 15, you want to be really, really conscientious that and thoughtful that you're going to have to use every square inch, because I'm going to give you only one sheet of the wax paper stencil. Now these are stencils to make other paper cutout pieces that will make our character. So that's today's lesson so far. The next thing we will do is we will transfer these pieces onto a watercolor paper. So let's start with the body. This is the body shape that we have, and I'm going to put the body sort of in the middle, right in the middle where the watercolor paper is. Has got some blemishes on it, but not a whole lot, and I'm just going to trace it out in colored pencil right now. In fact, what you're going to want to use, and you could do this too, you don't have to trace it out in pencil, you could go right to the Sharpie. So you should get a Sharpie like this, and it should be a fine tip Sharpie. And it would be great if you were to trace them all. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and trace all of these shapes just a little bit at a time. Once you do a line made out of this, it's not going to be able to come off. And then I want you to trace each one of the shapes separately so that they don't quite touch. And that's a leg there. I think that might be a back leg. Yep, that's probably one of these legs here. So if that's a back leg, I'll put the other one here. And then I'll put the feet. And so what I want you to do, I'll see you in a little bit. I'm going to transfer all of these shapes that I have onto here until we have them all. Now you can see I'm all done drawing out the basic shapes. I've just traced this foot right here. And what I want to do now is go back in and resketch the drawing. So I'm going to take the drawing and I'm going to do all the detail here. Now this is going to take a little while. You're going to go back in and imagine the tail and do these little small hash marks like that. These are going to be going in the direction that the tail, since this is the tail, that the tail will be going into. You want to label everything. Don't bother necessarily, you don't have to number them. I started to do that, but I decided I'm not going to do that. And just do these kind of lines. Now, they could be different short and dots and little longer lines, however you feel that your hair is actually going. This will be a very permanent marker that will not actually dissolve in water. So when we actually watercolor paint these, you'll see these lines. Because watercolor is transparent and you can see through it, you'll see these lines right through it. So what I want to do now is do every one, even the foot this way, little tiny hairs to start out with my foot, and down here where the pad is, and then I'm going to go around here and it's going to describe the foot. And then it's going to come up into these long ones, these longer hair ones like that. And you can just fill all of your shape with a whole bunch of these hair, like hash marks. And they can be very, very close, and they can be farther apart, but make it look as real as possible. Now, detail makes an animation, and it makes it very interesting, so make these as detailed as possible. And I'll show you what I've done in a little bit. And so you could see when the hair is actually going in one direction, that you want to actually describe. Every line is going to describe what direction that hair is actually flowing. You wouldn't want to go up straight up and down if it's actually laying back. And so as I do this, you can see I've done all of these so far. I'm just paying attention to the study that's actually showing me where the hair lines are actually going. And these are now, but this is now becoming my own drawing, and this is becoming my own mark pattern. They don't have to be perfect, but you do have to fill in the whole shape. You can't leave all of this white space. So details do make the subject, and that means that the more detail you add, the more interesting your character will become, and the more lifelike it can become. And so sometimes there are cartoons and there are animations without a whole lot of detail at all, but other times, like in my case, I want my bear to be pretty detailed and pretty realistic. So I'm going to add in as much line texture as possible. So if you wanted to make them more simple, you wouldn't have as much line, but everything has to be done exactly with the same amount of attention and the same amount of lines. You can't have open spaces and then all of these done. You have to get them all to match. Your Sharpie should be a great break from all the engraving you sixth graders have done. So you're actually now including line that's going to be a part of the actual end of the painting, or the part of the artwork itself, where the plate that you made is a work of art, but it's not generally going to end up in the final print. So this is different from printing. This is a kind of a break from it, and it's a wonderful break from it. Just remember, every line you make will stay there and be very permanent, and you need to make thousands of lines. So if you make a mistake, it's not going to be a big deal. And you want to draw like that. You don't want to draw with a lot of apprehension, but you do want to draw as if you were combing out and creating the hair of this animal. Just as if you were taking a comb and going through it. What direction would this hair be going? And that's the decision I'm making here. The other thing is you're going to be watercolor painting over this, so you can create a brown bear, a black bear. I can even add more blue to the black to make it a jet black bear. There's a lot of blue in black anyway, so I can push more brown or more black depending on what I want and mix my own colors. So I'll be showing you that in a little bit. And as you see, I'm finishing. Just wanted to show you how quickly it can be done. You don't have to spend a large amount of time trying to get something to look fairly decent and realistic. If you leave your pen in one place long enough, it'll drain all of its ink. So you kind of have to make, if you want to make a dot, you kind of have to just barely touch, and and not just sit it there for a long time. If you set the point there for a long time, it'll make a bigger dot, and that's not a bad thing either. Okay, when we come back, I want to show you how to watercolor paint, so I'll see you in a bit.